Recording. Excellent. Let's get started. So, let's start with the foundations of why we are studying this, the parikarmas. What is the background? Why the parikarmas? What is the purpose? There are, Shastras tell us there are 3 types of sadhakas: Arurukshu, Yunjana, and Yogarudha. Arurukshu is a complete beginner. Yeah, one who has not done yoga in their previous life. Arurukshu is one desirous of climbing the path of yoga. This is a person in ordinary life who has started to do yoga. So for this person, for this sadhaka, Ashtanga yoga is recommended. Yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Then comes the Yunjana. Yunjana is one who is already engaged in the practice, in the sadhana. We can call them as intermediary practitioner. They have some practice of yoga already put in. It could be from the past life, it could be in this life itself. They are an intense sadhaka. So for these type of sadhakas, Tapas Swadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhana, chapter 2, the Kriya Yoga, these 3 are recommended. And the Yoga Rudha, you may have come across this in the Bhagavad Gita. The Yoga Rudha are the experienced higher category of, in the sense of their practice. Their sadhana. These are Yoga Rudha. They have done yoga in the previous lives and are also continuing. Remember, according to the yoga, our Shastras, if I do yoga in this life, it's either continuing from the previous life, the samskara, or if I do not, yoga is being a moksha sadhana, liberation is the goal. And even if I do not attain higher positions of a higher sadhana, it is continued along with the soul. The soul takes the samskara along, and in the next birth, Bhagavad Gita also tells us this, that in the next birth you continue. So keeping that in mind, this is entirely in that sense, not at all related to practical, the intense asana practice, but the intensity of your intention and the commitment. Yeah. So the yoga rudha is required to do only abhyasa and vairagya. They have crossed all the other, they don't need to do yama niyamas, already they are established in it. Now vairagya, we know, is dispassion, detachment, in, for lack of better word. We're not going into vairagya, that's not relevant for us today. That's another, there are levels of vairagya, that's another topic. But abhyasa is the crucial one here. What is the abhyasa? Abhyasa is not the practice, asana practice. Abhyasa is the practice of concentration of the mind, bringing the mind to ekagrata. That is the abhyasa that a yoga rudha needs to practice. So for that, so that means abhyasa is practicing of the ekagrata. Now, why do we need ekagrata? Where does this fit in terms of liberation, samadhi? Now, in the very first sutra, Atha Yoga Anushasanam, in that commentary, Vyasa tells us beautifully what ekagrata leads to. Yeah. So, this is the Vyasa Bhashyam. So, yes, tvekagre chetasi, when a person is established in ekagrata, satbhutamartham pradyodayati. Satbhutam, the real, and sat and asat. So there is enlightenment about the real entity when one is established in ekagrata. Then kshinoti cha kleshan, it weakens the kleshas. Karma bandhanani shalathayati, the bonds of karma which keep bringing us into birth and death, the cycles. Yeah, it weakens, loosens the bonds of karma. Then nirodha mukham karoti. What is nirodha? You may be familiar that there are 5 states of mind: kshipta, mudha, vikshipta, ekagrata, niruddha. Yogaha chitta vritti nirodhaha. Yeah, so towards that cessation, nirodha is a state where there is complete cessation of all activities, oscillations. So this ekagrata is what is going to take us to nirodha. That will take one towards samprajnata yoga. So there are two samadhi, samprajnata and asamprajnata. Towards samprajnata samadhi, to progress towards that, one needs nirodha. In order to progress to nirodha, we need ekagrata. So it is ekagrata that's absolutely needed. This background, so far everyone's with me. Any questions here? Okay, so if you have any questions, please make a note. At the end of the session, we will find time to discuss. Okay, now jumping right into the parikarmas. Where do we find this? Yeah. In the Sutra 133, from Sutra number 133, Patanjali gives a list of certain tools, certain methods that one can practice. One of those, not all of them. Any one we can choose, because in the end, he also says, end of the list, yatha abhimata dhyanadva. So we can choose one of the methods to bring the quality of ekagrata to progress in yoga sadhana. So in the very first, before beginning his listing, Vyasa tells us that these are parikarmas, purification methods that are prescribed by the Shastras. Why do we need to do these parikarmas? When one takes on this attitude, Shuklo Dharma Upajayate. So it gives Shukla Dharma, it gives rise to a cleaner virtue. So when that happens, then the chitta becomes pure. In a chitta that is pure, that is lacking in vikshepa, then one pointed mind, the vikshepa and ekagrata are opposing. In a mind full of vikshepa, ekagrata is not possible. So when we practice one of these, then we are enabling ekagrata.
6, 7.
Someone please mute. Okay. So we jump right into the very first one. Yeah, Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upekshanam, Sukha Dukha, Punya Punya Vishayanam, Bhavanataha Chitta Prasadanam. So those who are familiar with Buddhism, you may know this as the Brahma Viharas, right? Maitri, Karuna, Mudita and Upeksha. These are 4 attitudes that we must inculcate, that we must cultivate. In what situations? Maitri, friendliness. Karuna, compassion. Mudita is appreciation. Upeksha is indifference. Yeah. In the situations such as Maitri, when a person is in sukha, towards a person who is happy, have an attitude of friendliness. Karuna, compassion towards a person who is suffering. Mudita, appreciation. When someone is doing a punya karma, a virtuous deed, a good deed. Upeksha, indifference, being merely an observant. When someone is doing an apunya karma. Now, the first two are very easy for a lot of us. Yeah. So somebody is happy, I'm happy for you, you're suffering. I feel for you. Feeling of the compassion is easy. The last two are even more difficult. Yeah. So that is why these are things that we need to consciously cultivate. Now, why is this given to a yogi? So when we think about it, the commentators tell us also, a yogi, the yoga sadhana is turning inwards. Yeah, it's an inner journey, inward journey, a subtler journey. But before we turn inward, the mind, its nature is automatically to go outward. Yeah. So a yogi in his sadhana, during his sadhana, he or she will be faced with situations which involves all these cases where somebody is in pain, somebody is happy, somebody is doing a good deed or
वो
bad.
शकरकंदी लोगे क्या?
Sorry. Yeah. So a yogi, before turning inward, needs to make sure that the environment that he is living and doing his or her sadhana, to that there is going to be opportunities where you have to act or react. We cannot change the outside world, but what we should have control in the yoga sadhana is how I react. What is my attitude? So before turning inward, the outwardly situations, how do I respond? That is the practice that we need to do. Yeah. So the purpose is to cultivate nobler emotions. And these are attitudes. We talked about this. Another thing that the cultivating these attitudes does is that equanimity. Yoga is to be equanimous, neither being overjoyous nor being overly in suffering. Yeah, so we can have empathy. There is a difference between me taking on the other person's sadness and being empathetic. So a yogi needs to learn to culture their emotions, and this attitudes, the Maitri Karuna Mudita, this is for Chitta Prasadanam, for my own Chitta Prasadanam. That is the key message here. This is not so that I am a good person. This is so that my own mind is in a Prashanta Vahita state. Yeah, brief pause here before we move on. Everybody is with me. This is easy one. I think a lot of us will be familiar with. Okay. So the next one, Prachardana Vidharanabhyam Va Pranasya. This is talking about control of the mind, bringing ekagrata through the breath. By exhaling and retaining the breath also, the mind can be calmed. Now, simply by exhaling, every inhale, we are breathing throughout the day. Yeah. So simply by breathing in and out all the time, can we bring in one pointed concentration? No. There is a method. So to exhale slowly and thereby stilling the body also. Once the breath and the body are inactive, then stilling the mind. Through this process, we are stopping all the oscillations. Now, exhalation, remember this is your parasympathetic, really connected to parasympathetic nervous system. The calming of the mind and connecting with the infinite, with the ultimate, Shastras tell us is not possible in inhale. We need to exhale and hold. Only in that shunya, the physiological relaxation happens. When the body relaxes, the breath relaxes, and the mind also stops. So we know from Hatha Yoga also, chale vate chalam chittam nischale nischalam bhavet. When the wind moves, when the prana moves, your breath moves, your mind also moves. When you calm the breath, your mind is also calm. When you still the breath, the mind is also still. To bring that stillness to the mind, we use the breath. Yeah. So there are two views in this. I wanted to bring up that also. Generally understood meaning is that this is done on exhale and retention after exhale. But two of the commentaries, both Swami Vivekananda and Bhojadeva in his Rajamarthanda, they talk about this as involving three components of the pranayama, all three: exhaling and then inhale and holding that breath. Yeah. So exhaling completely, then you inhale, holding that breath. That is the retention that is talked about. So they say all three are involved. Generally understood one is exhale and hold. But there is also this view that the holding is after inhale. So just for information. Yeah, I'm going to briefly pause here. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, moving on to the next one. Vishayavati va pravrittirutpanna manasaha sthiti nibandhini. So the Vishayavati are the objects of senses. Vishaya are the objects. What are the objects of senses? For the eyes, everything that I can see, that's the Vishaya. For the ears, all the sounds, that are the Vishaya. Yeah. The cognition arising from a higher perception of the sensuous objects, that can also bring ekagrata. Now, when we look at it superficially, we will understand this as senses and objects. But a deeper study, it tells us that there are certain positions on the body that are, the Shastras tell us where to focus on in order to bring in this higher. This is not just a sensory focus, but super sensory practice. It is a specific intentional practice that one must uh, inculcate in order to get that perception. Now, some of these are the locations given. Yeah. At the tip of the nose, focusing in order to have super sensory smell. Then at the tip of the tongue, the taste, color, touch, sound, all of these specific locations are given. Yeah. Jihva, Jihva Mule, Shabda Samvit. I'm going to pause. Another request, please. Anybody who is not muted, please mute. Okay. So, yeah, it breaks my train of thought. Sorry. Yeah. So there are specific locations that are given to focus on in order to bring that supersensory perception. Now, we know science also tells us that we see a lot more than we take in, we are aware of. We hear a lot more than we are actually taking in. So there is the capability in us. It is a matter of practice and focus. Also, if you see the list, you can see these are not, what gives us an indication that these are not just the gross level of sensory object, sensory perception. From the bottom, if you see, it is Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa and Gandha. These are Tanmatra level. Tanmatras are the subtler concepts from which the Bhutas emerge. Your Akasha, Vayu, Apa, Agni, Apaha, Prithvi. So, how does this help? By getting this super sensory perception. Yeah, this is how. When we are able to practice having a perception at the subtler level of the tanmatras, then it stabilizes the minds, removes all doubt. So their liberation, salvation is a very subtle concept. In order to understand and in order to practice with Shraddha, we need prior practice. So understanding these subtler concepts prepares one in order to understand or in order to prepare for even more subtler concepts such as salvation or moksha. Clear so far? Okay. Next one. Vishokava Jyotishmati. The perception which is Vishoka, without any sorrow, sorrowless and illuminating Jyotishmati. That perception, contemplation practiced on the innermost core of the heart. Yeah. This brings the knowledge of buddhi. So that illumination is the knowledge that of the buddhi. When the buddhi is covered up, then there is darkness. When we focus on the innermost core of the heart, there's a lot more to this idea of the heart. Yeah.
Sorry for the interruption, Pratibha. I think someone is on unmuted themselves. Yoga Sri, I think. Or you mute. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jansi. Yeah. So the perception here is two facets that we have to remember. One is the sorrowless nature of it. The forever happy is a very gross word. Yeah. Lack of sorrow will be a better word. It's forever bliss is a word. English is that way very poor in translation of that ananda is not happiness, but for lack of word. Yeah. So the sorrowlessness, that is one quality that we perceive when we focus on the hridaya. And facet another facet is the luminous, the self-luminous quality from the core of your heart. Now, there is a lot of literature, lot of imagery on this heart. What is this heart? Now, according to this, our lore, the heart is in the hridaya is not the physical heart that's supposed to be on the left side, the anatomical heart. No, this has nothing to do with that, no connection. The hridaya, according to the shastras, is 12 angulas above the nabhi in the center of your heart. Yeah. And this hridaya, in the center of this hridaya, in the shape of an upside lotus, is the supreme. The soul is in the Narayana Suktam gives us a beautiful imagery of this. Yeah. Adho Padmakosha Pratikashagum Hridayam Chapyadho Mukham. It is imagined. Suktams are beautiful visualizations. Yeah. Upside down lotus, and in the center of the lotus is this heart, which is just the size of a thumb, is what our literature tell us. Now, how do we practice this? So there are practical ways to bring this into meditation, to focus on the center of your heart, bringing it into a meditative focus, focusing on the center of your heart along with your breathing as you inhale and exhale, turning the lotus upward and visualizing it as unfurling, and visualizing the innermost luminous, the light within, the sorrowless light within, which spreads throughout the entire system. These are some of the ways that we can bring in this meditative quality. Yeah. I'm going to just briefly pause. Okay, next one. Vitaraga Vishayam Va Chittam. So, who are these Vitaragas? Vitaraga are persons who have gone beyond Raga and Dvesha, basically. Yeah. So, these are people who are who have utmost Vairagya. They do not have, they are free from the attachments of this world or the higher world. So by focusing on the persons such as Vitaraga, by focusing on them, by contemplating on their life or their character, their persona, we can bring in the ekagrata quality. Now, these examples are given in the text, such as Narada, Krishna Dvaipayana, who's Vyasa, divine incarnation. So remember, these can be, this is, we can easily emulate other people. So the actor is dressing this way, that way. We have to understand the context and always keep it in mind. This is in the context of a spiritual pursuit. So any spiritual master or a divine incarnation, yeah, with the spiritual qualities that we want to emulate, it is easier to see. And I've have a lot of friends who will say, I've given up coffee, and then when you ask them why, oh, Periva doesn't drink coffee, or back when he was there. Periva is Kanchi Mat, the senior most, who passed away a long time back. So people have such, or Sai Baba said this, and I'm following. It is easier for us to see the virtues of great spiritual masters and emulate, and thereby culture our mind also. So this is also one of the ways that we can remove the impurities from the mind and make way for single pointed focus, ekagrata. Okay, so far? Okay, last one, very interesting one. I think this is the one that I've always had questions on. Okay, swapna nidra jnanalambanam va. Swapna nidra jnana alambana. Alambana is support. Yeah. So taking support of the jnana, the knowledge arising from swapna and nidra. Now, superficially, just understanding it, we will see that I have a dream, swapna, and from that dream, whatever knowledge I got, taking that as a meditation focus or deep sleep. Nidra is a deep sleep. When it says nidra, it's not just sleep, it is the deep sleep, dreamless state. Both states are given here. The knowledge that I experience, that I have, taking that and bringing it as a focus of meditation. Now, is all swapna and nidra, do all swapna and nidra qualify? No. The swapna and nidra need to be sattvic. One, we can take some medication. Somebody is taking a medication or is extremely tired and sleeping. Not every sleep is a sattvic sleep. There is a Sanskrit saying sukhamaham aswapsam na kinchit avedisham. When a person has slept and they wake up and say, I slept very well, I don't know what happened. So that is one way to see, to know that it's been a good sleep. Or the opposite also, a person can say, I slept, we are all familiar with this. I slept very poorly, I was, tossing and turning. So we'll know it was not a good sleep. So that kind of a good sleep, nidra, the knowledge, so when we say knowledge, what kind of a knowledge? We will have dream, and when we are living in the everyday life, many things we may be dreaming. Yeah. So this is also another deeper practice. Now, in the swapna and nidra state, during the sleep state, the consciousness, we are not aware of what's happening, but during sleep, our consciousness moves to subtler planes, which we are not aware of at the time. Yeah. So it is the Jivatma leaves the physical body and moves into subtler planes. It's a special training and practice to bring into the physical brain, into your conscious memory, what we dreamt of and the knowledge that we got in the dream sleep state to your conscious memory and using it as a meditative focus. Yeah. So that is the practice that one can do. Okay, so we will summarize quickly and then we'll go back to any slide, any questions we have, we'll deal with that. Yeah. Okay. So first we established the background. Why do we need to do ekagrata? What is the background? So abhyasa and vairagya are needed for a yogi. For all of us it is needed. For yoga rudha, these are the only two things needed. And abhyasa is the practice of ekagrata. And this ekagrata, what does it do? Karma bandhanani shlatayati, kshinoti kleshan, all of these things it does. And nirodhapi mukham karoti. What are the practices that we can do to bring this quality? The Maitri, Karuna, Mudita and Upeksha, friendliness, compassion, appreciation and indifference towards people who are in happiness, pain or suffering, doing a punya karma and apunya karma. Yeah. So that's the first one. Second one is prachardana vidharanabhyam. By exhaling and retention also, we can bring that focus. Then Vishayavati va pravrittirutpanna manasaha sthiti nibandhini. Vishayavati, the objects of senses, by cultivating a super sensory perception at the tanmatra level. Yeah, remember. Also, we can bring the mind to unity. Vishokava Jyotishmati is by focusing on the Hridaya, the innermost inner core of the heart, which is sorrowless. Vishoka Jyotishmati, both qualities are on bringing to mind these qualities, on connecting with something deeper within. Then, Vitaraga Vishayam va Chittam, by connecting to persons who are Vitaraga, who have detached from the desires, who have gone past Raga, Dvesha, and all those qualities. By emulating their personality, by meditating on their life and their characters. Then last one, Swapna Nidra Jnana Alambanam va. By focusing on the experience, the knowledge gained from Swapna and Nidra, also the mind can be calmed down. And there is another tool given. The next sutra in this order would be Yatha Abhimata Dhyanadva. Patanjali also tells us these are all 6 different parikarmas, options that one can do. But anything that brings to your mind the meditative quality, Yatha Abhimata, whatever you like, that brings to now, doesn't, everything we have to keep in mind the context. Whatever brings to mind the meditative quality, sattvic meditative quality, you can practice that. There is no rule that we have to do only this. Yeah. So I'm going to briefly pause. Anyone has any comments? Please feel free. Unmute yourself and share.